What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I'm going to break down what's going on with NIO stock and what you should be watching for moving forward. I'm also going to talk about the overall market, what's going on with SPY and a couple of other tickers like Tesla, and talk about how on earth the market is moving, what you should be watching for. But before I do anything like this, before I talk about what's going on with NIO and what's happening with all these shorts piling in, let me just mention a couple of things before starting. I'm firstly not a financial planner, so make sure you take none of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 12 free stocks. The offer ends very soon. It ends in just about 2 weeks, so check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. NIO is down 4.79% for the day, but the whole market did actually come down in a very similar manner. And overall, I didn't really see too much negative news about NIO in itself. It's just that NIO was due for a technical move like this. I was talking about this yesterday being one possibility, especially if the market ended up just continuing to slow down. And the real question is, why on earth did NIO sell off like this? Well, it has less to do with NIO and itself and its fundamentals, and more to do with the overall market as the market started to sell off. So I'm going to break down how the market moved and why on earth NIO got impacted by this. The unemployment numbers came out today in the US. They were a little bit lower than expected, which is a decent sign. I mean, the market didn't respond too negatively to that, but the non-farm payrolls were lower than expected too, and the market actually popped off of this, which was a little surprising. The market still decided to pop and start pushing, but then we got a big rejection off a critical level on SPY. And then what happened was the market, I'm going to pull this up right here. The market ended up just selling off as a result of that. And there are still some talks going on about the Fitch downgrade. I'm going to talk more about this in tomorrow's video, but the Fitch downgrade basically, they downgraded the US long-term rating from a triple A rating to a double A rating plus. Now, what does this mean? Basically, when foreign investors or anyone wants to invest in the US or take on, like bonds and etc., they have to look at the USA and the rating the USA has. It's kind of like a credit score. So here in the US, if you have a higher credit score, you are more likely to pay off your debt on time, make your payments, and do things like that. But if your credit score is a lot lower, it's less likely that you're going to be meeting those payments on time and meet your financial obligations. So here in the US, right, we had a triple A rating for such a very, very long time. And finally, it got a downgrade from a triple A rating to a double A plus, right? And when this happens, this is not the best of news for the US. Many people out there said it was very ridiculous, such as Janet Yellen, Warren Buffett, and other figures. But like I said before, it's still going to affect the markets. I mean, the last time this happened, we saw the markets sink quite a bit. So we will see if this happens again. It's just very important to be prepared. As far as NIO goes, NIO was down 4.79%. I just want to mention that NIO didn't really do anything wrong. This wasn't necessarily NIO's fault. And seeing NIO dropping, I just want to mention that there was a big surge in the short interest. Just a couple of days ago, we saw about 26 million of these NIO shares shorted, but we saw some short covering for just a couple of days before NIO started to drop again. And we saw the last time this came out just a few days ago, about 15 million NIO shares were shorted. That is the most up-to-date short interest on NIO. And that did have an effect on the share price, right? We saw NIO starting to slow down as a result of this shorting. Relative to the market, NIO still has a good price per ratio, still holding up quite decently. And historically, NIO tends to be not the strongest on Fridays. They're only green about 53% of the time. We will see how this goes for tomorrow. Not tomorrow, for Monday. Sorry about that, guys. Today's Friday. We're just going to have to wait and see. Looking at some data from NIO on August 2nd, they launched their newest power swap station. They have 22 power swap stations and 9 charger stations in Europe, plus 500,000 plus third-party chargers. So pretty good stuff for them. Just wanted to note that. But now let's talk about the technicals. How is NIO looking? Unfortunately, NIO is looking a little weak because when you zoom out of the 4-hour time frame, NIO has been developing a bearish divergence and starting to cool off a little bit. But NIO has technically not really broken below our 50 EMA so far. I think that on the 1-hour time frame, it's a little easier. Not the 1 hour, it might be the 2-hour time frame. I think it was this one. So on the 2-hour time frame, NIO is actually holding the 50 EMA as of right now. So we're going to see if this holds or not. If it does break below this, you're going to be watching those imbalances that were actually like down there. So if you go back to the 4-hour time frame, by the way, NIO had these imbalances down below. So there's one in like the higher 13s. If it broke below the low of the day, so if it broke like below, like 14.5 or so, we're going to be watching NIO come all the way down to the high 13s, like 13.97 is a possibility. The 50 EMA on the 4-hour time frame becomes very possible. And it had this bearish divergence, which is still in the process of developing. So the odds do favor NIO coming down into like the 14 area, then maybe trying to bounce after that. But I could still see a little bit more downside because the market is starting to slow down. Now, if you look at SPY has this head and shoulders like pattern that is developing, and the market's going to likely continue to sink. However, I just want to note that it depends on if we continue to break down on Monday or not. If we end up breaking below 446 very soon over the next couple of trading days, we're going to see SPY come all the way down to 442 as the next level for the next gap fill. If we fail to do that and we end up bouncing, you have to get above 448 and 450 for there to be hope for the bulls. But so far, it's looking more like the market's going to sell off more with the negative rating that came from Fitch. Now, I will talk more about that in just a couple of. Actually, by tomorrow, I'm going to talk more about that. Not today. Later on tomorrow, I will talk about more things involving SPY and NIO. But I just want to mention technicals are looking kind of weak on SPY. For the triple Q, it's the same thing basically. This thing is trying to make lower highs and lower lows respecting its channel. Now, could you argue that this is on the verge of bouncing? But the problem is, I'm not really seeing a catalyst for it to bounce off of, and we're currently trying to hold 372. If that breaks, you're going to be watching 370, then 368 as our supports. And for resistance, you're going to be watching 373, 375, and 376. Still looking relatively weak. It looks like it's going to likely continue dropping off and hitting 368 to 370. And finally, we have Tesla on the 4-hour time frame below this pattern right here. What some people are wondering is, could this be like a inverse head and shoulders? I'm not sure about that. I wouldn't necessarily count on that because we're on the verge of getting a bearish cross on the PPO on the MACD. So if Tesla were to break down, we're going to be watching 250. If 250 fails on Tesla, it's going to come sinking down into the 240s and potentially all the way down to where its gaps are. If it bounces off 250, or if not this low right over here, it has to get above 255 and then try to get above the 200 EMA for there to be some hope. It looks relatively weak right now, so we're just going to be watching for those confirmations. But one issue for the market would be Aapl selling off. Aapl is currently down, and that's slowing the market down. NIO is also following the market down at 4.79%, looking relatively weak. So we're going to be watching how does NIO end up performing. Could NIO get that bounce or not? In my opinion, it looks to me like NIO is going to hit the lower 14s because the market may drag it down. So it's not necessarily NIO's fault, but that looks very probable based off this trend. However, the question is, and this is going to be for tomorrow's video, will NIO continue to sell off, or is NIO going to get a bounce for the next few weeks and the next few months? And I do have a prediction for NIO I'm going to talk about involving the Fitch rating, but I first have to talk about what actually went down. All right, so wait for my video for tomorrow for that update on NIO and also for the whole market. I'm going to break down something very insightful for the next few months. I think a lot of you are going to like it because I do expect the market to see some monstrous moves by the end of the year. And I will talk about what I think is going to play out. So just wait for that for tomorrow. And until then, please remain calm, cool, and collected. Do what you have to do. Watch your levels. And I'll see you guys in the next one. NIO to the moon and peace out.